Hi, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on the jurisdiction we are actually, joining in from. Welcome and thank you all for joining us for today's live legal talk show. The title is Navigating Opportunities and Challenges of Doing Business in India and Brazil. I'm Shweta Bharti, Managing Partner at Hammurabi and Solomon Partners, and I'm honored to host this timely discussion on two of the world's most influential emerging markets, India and Brazil. Both the emerging nations offer unparalleled opportunities for global businesses while presenting unique regulatory, cultural, and operational landscapes to navigate. The relationship between India and Brazil in global business is about much more than transactions. It is an opportunity to bridge two vibrant economies, each bringing distinct strengths, opportunities, and cultural perspectives. Before delving into the challenges, it's important to first appreciate the distinct value both India and Brazil bring to the global stage. As two of the fastest growing economies worldwide, their large consumer base, the abundant resources and sectors like technology, agriculture, pharmaceutical, and manufacturing present a significant advantage for foreign investors. Initiatives like Make in India and Brazil's tax incentives for foreign investments create pathways for global companies seeking growth. However, navigating these incentives successfully requires an in-depth understanding of local regulations and cultural nuances, making today's discussion invaluable for any international business strategy aimed at India or Brazil. This webinar is being jointly organized by Hammurabi and Solomon Partners, which is a multi-speciality law firm with expertise in corporate and commercial matters, mergers, acquisitions, policy, strategy, infrastructure development, real estate, arbitration, insolvency, and bankruptcy, and various other areas of law, and having its office across the key cities of the country, along with one of the biggest law firms of Brazil, TozziniFreire, a top-tier Brazilian law firm which is recognized for its expertise across 55 areas of corporate law and a strong presence in business sectors. It was established in 1976, and the firm has built a reputation as one of the Latin America's largest and most reputable firms, frequently involved in major Brazilian transactions. So today's session, we bring together a distinguished panel of legal and business experts. Each of them are going to bring deep insights into the diverse factors that influence business growth and success in these two regions. Our panelists bring expertise in regulatory landscapes, trade policies, corporate governance, and cross-border compliance, ensuring a comprehensive exploration of the challenges and strategic considerations essential for entering and expanding in India and Brazil. In this webinar, we will also cover essential themes, including India market entry, Brazil market entry, expansion strategies, regulatory environments, trade agreements, cultural adaptations, and more. And the panelists are also going to offer their expertise on overcoming compliance challenges, optimizing trade agreements, and risk management for success in both the regions. And together, we aim to equip you with a well-rounded understanding of the practical aspects of doing business in these dynamic economies. Allow me to introduce our speakers for the webinar. We have Mr. Ashutosh Das, who is the partner at Hammurabi and Solomon Partners. And Ashutosh is a renowned expert in alcohol and beverages laws with over 23 plus years of post-qualification experience in managing complex regulatory frameworks. He has been instrumental in major mergers and acquisition activities, including the acquisition in Miller by Molson Coors, Absolute by Pernod Ricard, Wrigley by Mars, and SEMA Connect by Blink Charging, as well as Ashutosh has been handling matters relating to competition law and also various other corporate commercial matters. We also have on the screen Mr. Luiz Renato Okumura, who's the partner at TozziniFreire, and Luiz has been working with corporate law in mergers and acquisitions for over 15 years, including joint venture, corporate restructurings, capital market transactions, venture capital structures. He's, in fact, also handling the agribusiness industry group, representing Brazilian and foreign clients in purchase and sale transactions. And he has broad experience in planning and structuring the foreign investments in Brazil, in the analysis, drafting, and negotiation of highly complex contracts, and in the conduction of the due diligence procedures. We also have on the screen Mr. Amit Verma. He's the partner designated at Hammurabi and Solomon Partners. And Amit specializes in corporate structuring, mergers and amalgamations, PE/VC investment transactions, and providing comprehensive legal support for startups. He's also proficient in commercial agreements, corporate secretarial work, and FEMA and RBI advisory. His decade-plus long expertise further includes employment and labor advisory, compliance, and various other legal issues. We also have on the screen Ms. Carla do Couto Hellu Battilana, who's the partner at TozziniFreire, and Carla brings with her an expertise of over 13 plus years, and she has been working specifically in the information technology, cybersecurity, data privacy, corporate practice, mergers and amalgamations, intellectual property, and innovation. So as we begin this engaging session, I would like to inform you that one of our speakers, Ms. Shin Kim, who's the head of compliance and investigation at TozziniFreire, is not able to join us today due to some urgent matter which required her presence. However, we have four very eminent speakers to take on the session. Now, before we start with the discussion, may I request Ashutosh and Amit to present the Indian perspective on navigating the opportunities and challenges of doing business in India. Over to you, both of you, Ashutosh and Amit. And thereafter, I would request Luiz and Carla to take over so far as the Brazilian side of the navigating of opportunities and challenges of doing business in Brazil is concerned.
Sure. Thank you for this really good brief for all of us. And I really appreciate you kind of putting it all together. So, hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be part of this new initiative, which is actually an opportunity for all of us, not only to create something new, but also to kind of create our legacy, because this is, in my view, a very good opportunity for companies, for law firms, for individuals of both the countries to come together, try to make partnership in a way that not only we help each other to navigate the business atmosphere and the compliance and regulatory framework, but also create something new which adds value to the entire global business scenario. So for the people who know India just through the news channels or news sources or the hearsay from friends and family, let me kind of introduce India, and my colleague Amit will deep dive into the regulatory part and the compliance part of it. So Amit, let's start from our deck, presenting from India side. Just a minute, yeah. Can you share? Everyone, you are getting, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Go
what
on.
I was saying is while Amit starts, I think it is very interesting. I was going through the deck and I realized that it is very interesting, that how there are so many similarities between India and Brazil. So I'm sure, when you both would be taking through the Indian deck, and then, when Luiz and Carla starts with their Brazilian deck, you'll see there to be a lot of regulatory challenges and, similarities in that sense that both the countries have. Go ahead, Ashutosh.
Yeah. So we are kind of looking India as a country. And if I can present, India is so many countries within a country. It's an amalgamation of 28 states, 8 union territories. It's a big, big country with a population of 1.46. the most populous in the entire world. Even having this kind of complexity, we have cracked the code, and we are at present the fifth biggest economy, and we are growing really fast. Much of it, much of it you can kind of contribute to the workforce, the young population of India, which is 65% below the age of 35. 780 languages. Can you believe? One country, 780 languages. And still, we have find a way to work together. So English is widely understood and is spoken across different regions. And you can say that's a thread which is kind of putting all of us together from a language perspective. And the federal structure of government gives space to both the central government as well as the state government to play its part, be it the governance, be it the business and regulatory framework. Some of the key highlights of India is the projected GDP growth of 7% plus for the next 5 years, which will take India to the fourth largest economy stage by 2026. India, along with the Brazil, they have really worked together and founded BRICS. All of us, we are aware the kind of role BRICS is playing nowadays in global scenario. And it's a really important player in the current world. So India is playing not only as a partner or the founding member of BRICS, but even otherwise, India is a very important player. And why invest in India? Some of the key points which we wanted to highlight to share with our friends in Brazil: fastest growing economy in the world, largest consumer base with 1.4 billion population. India is having third global position in the real estate investments, ranked 63 in the ease of doing business. So 63 may sound a bit down the order, but we are improving. And there are challenges, as I have already shared. Since it's a country of diversity, it's a country having so many other uh, parts or points to take care of. To make everyone move in a single direction is a big challenge. And we are kind of covering that challenge, overcoming that challenge. And currently, we are 63rd in ease of doing business, and we are improving day by day. 15th in the FDI inflows with 28 million inflow, one of the largest manufacturing hub by 2030. So you must be aware all the big names in global business, they are putting up their manufacturing facility in India. Either they have already started like Apple, or they are kind of still working with all the regulatory people to start like semiconductors. So it's a very good place to be in at this juncture. Connectivity with Central Asia or Gulf countries, you can create India as a hub, and you can go do business with entire globe, with India being one of the manufacturing hub. The major sectors to invest in India, we have picked up few just to keep it simple: health, innovation, and pharmaceuticals, energy and electric vehicle, information technology being the heart of all the developments, because currently with the AI and other softwares, this is one of the essential part for every business to run. Education, tourism, and hospitality, manufacturing, FMCG, banking, and finance services, fintech. So these are the key areas where we can put our resources and our effort to make this work and start a new journey. Amit, you're on mute, Amit.
Good, good morning, everyone. Good evening and good afternoon. In continuation of Mr. Ashutosh has mentioned, I need to continue in that terms that in getting the investment towards in India on behalf of outside India, like overseas investments or like inwards investments towards India, we have drive through some kind of technical part that is inclusive of automatic routes or strategic investment methods. These two terms will be divided by the regulatory aspects only. These regulatory aspects that includes the automatic route specifically that will help us to get the inflow of funds for investing in India by the foreign investors, including Brazil and global level investors. They have a direct entry to get into the market. There is no specific approval is required. They just need to intimate our Reserve Bank of India in terms of that investment needs to be made. Apart from that, there have been no additional compliance needs to be done except the normal annual compliances. Simultaneously, the things need to be done with the help of the types of options that we usually provided in Indian laws, is like wholly owned subsidiary, joint venture, or SPVs or branch offices. The major sectors that has been allowed under Indian laws are like automobile, manufacturing, agriculture, information technology, up to the 100% FDI level. However, there are some routes that is been restricted by the government. The specific are one of them are like defense or aviation or media, including telecommunications, because these routes are being controlled by the government, and these routes are specifically towards considering the what are the investment flows from outside India and to maintain the nationality, including the economic affairs of the company and the government and the country. These things need to be considered. Similar kind of the opportunity that has been provided, including in the venture capital funds and joint ventures. Some another investment options also we have been considered, like for institutional investors or for all portfolio investors. These are specifically for considering alternative routes to get the investment from outside India to India. Some are the regulatory challenges or the regulatory advantages that we are considering or viewing. These are options. The regulatory advantages are specifically towards behalf of the government of India and our country specific requirements for the sake of new opportunities for the foreign investors to infuse the amount or get the opportunity to get grow our economy in regards with that. So either of them are like ease of doing business, in that our Indian regulatory aspects are considered in that way. They have digitized the trade process, including improve the ports and significant reduce time cost and international trades. Simultaneously, they also consider removing the incorporation fees for the companies to incorporate in India. So they have been allowed small entities or small private limited companies to incorporate in India and start businesses to avoid any kind of regulatory aspects. Simultaneously, in India, that has been national single window system also been initiated. Somehow that has been working towards the flow of the incorporation process and the regulatory challenges that will be included in that. So that will reduce the permit costing plus the timeline plus the per capita income from 23.2% to 5.4%. Then apart from that, another things that has been considered for labor law reforms are that has been we in India that 29 labors has been consolidated into 4 codes, and these are specifically towards flexibility to and making easier into the firms to operate to avoid numerous compliances pertaining to different law at state level and central level. That's why the government had considered to consolidate in out of 29 to 4. In that way, they have been considered, including the government also considers the labor law cost that has been reduced by wages. So minimum wages around $65 per month. That is lower in the developed countries. Simultaneously, in India, some social security agreements also executed. That has been discussed with the Brazil with also, but still it's not been executed. It's in discussion till date. It will be take time because of the country's discussion itself. The other regulatory advantages, that's like product linked incentive schemes and special economic zones. So in India, they specifically the government provide PLI schemes in 14 key sectors that help them USD 26 billions. Apart from that, increase in India manufacturing output for 40 lakhs a year. The product link PLI is basically provide incremental sales for 4 to 6% over the base year, enhancing the domestic manufacturing and attract investments. Special economic zones is specifically the opportunities provided to the foreign investors to import the goods in SEZ and get the exemptions towards custom duties and reducing the operational cost for businesses. That has been specifically considered for giving a tax benefit and exemptions for initial 5 years that can be continued for certain additional condition needs to be fulfilled. Apart from that, they also provided that ease regulatory requirement and faster approval streamlines. So that will be helpful for foreign infusions, investments that will be considered in it. The regulatory advance includes also foreign FDIs and tax reforms. The FDIs has been provided under some sectors as 100%, some are restricted. FDI 100% is basically flouted through automatic routes, but the restricted flouted so government approval routes. That has been complied through FEMA, the Indian law that is specifically for foreign investment, that is Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999, including the rules and their circulars. There is an additional portal for our neighboring countries that has been created that includes the all neighboring 7 to 8 countries, border sharing country of India. They have been considered with the help of specific approval under a foreign investment facilitation portal that has been provided by the government's approvals only. The tax benefits and reforms that we are considering is that we reduce the tax from 22% to 15% and provided tax holidays for 5 years up to 100% tax, and then next 50% for next 5 years. We had implemented GST in a single streamlined tax, so avoid multiple taxes and state and central level. That will be helpful for them. The government also take longest initiatives. Some of them has been we have been popped out here. One of them is National Infrastructure Pipeline that has been for 2019 to 2025. That includes specifically for economic growth and that create employment opportunity in different sectors, provide better infrastructure for all sectors, enhance ease of living for its citizens. The capex in split equal between the central government and state government, each contributing around 29%, private sector 22%, plus the tax holidays pertaining to the pipeline that has been provided. Simultaneously, in terms of the Make in India initiative, our government have make some aims to transfer India to global level manufacturing and service based company in the country. That will helpful for in terms of simplified regulations, giving a startup opportunities. Startup platform has been created. They also provide PLI schemes under various tax and other investment incentives. Then the major thing that has been done by government is the Atmanirbhar Bharat plan. In that they have took initiative to make India self-reliant by improving the country's economy and the manufacturing demands. Make in India products need to be considered in the Atmanirbhar plan, plus the Make in India services that will be provided. The key government initiative also includes free trade agreements that has been done at global level. In that they have government has took initiative in they have provided like zero duty entry for Indian markets for various products. That is a free trade agreements that provide some free trade zones to them, or the foreign investors have a some kind of raw material or work in progress material that is been considered as a value added manufacturing part. So that will be part of it. Apart from that, some agreements also executed by India, that is a EFTA deal, including the binding commitment for substantial investment for defined period of 100 billion or 15 years. That will be enhancing the investor confidence to invest in India in terms of the return and economic factors also. As I mentioned, the Startup India scheme that is include the same part that tax holidays for 3 consecutive years plus streamline the regulatory processes. Some dedicated fund allotted by the government towards the venture capital to encourage investment in startups. So it will be helpful for numerous new faces to involve their ideas and get the benefit on behalf of the governments to grow the economy along with the grow with the country. Other initiatives are some of them like Nidhi, Startup India, Investor Connect, RODEP, that is remission of duties and tax on export schemes, plus the Atal Innovation Venture. These are specifically towards the government benefit plus investment benefit. Both sides has been considered in terms of considering it. Now, the thing is, in terms of once we have initiated the idea of making investment in India, some kind of concerns or like you can have a challenges in handling these making investments in India. Some of them are like I want to add from our side is like complex regulatory framework that is specifically defined in that way that we have multi-level regulatory approvals and state and center level issues. So that is need to be streamlined in that way. So it will be considered for us to be in a national window scheme that will help us to consider all center and state level approvals and regulatory challenges that will be covered in that. Plus, there is a taxation system, but that has been deviated in different types. It's like state level at center level, but it's with single portal, but still deviation in terms of numerous level of tax slabs and categories that create a concern for us. So it needs to be streamlined in that way. It also considering that venture capital when they are initiated to that you should be invest in the Indian countries. So these are the regulatory issues come in their mind before investing in. They have considered only the ROIs, but the issues needs to be considered. Complicated land acquisitions laws that is for specifically acquiring land in business operations that become delays due to regulatory hurdles and lack of clear guidelines. The concerns in making investments include some other things that is major from uh, bilateral investment treaties that has been executed between Brazil and India. Some are in discussion, some are in initial, like social security agreements has been under discussion, but other agreements has been executed. But it will help to get the benefit via behalf of the investors to infuse the amount in India or considering the investment for futuristic approach that will be helpful for them, because the initial example is that Vodafone has been have a huge impact over the non-compliance or the India-Netherlands treaty. That's why these things very mandate in terms of handling these kind of cross-border arrangements. Additional things like certain sectorial caps and restrictions put by the government that is specifically towards certain sectors like insurance, banking, defense, that has been controlled by the government only. So they need to allow the other investors to infuse the amount and considering what are the opportunities to them get the benefit towards it. The last and thing is that I want to say that economic factors that is inclusive of all the economic factors like volatility in the Indian rupee, the fluctuation between the Indian rupee and the dollar will impact over it. Then the conversion charges for the investment that pay back to home currency, that is also a huge impact on it. Additionally, India has a historical experience higher inflation rates compared to some developed countries. The inflation also erode the purchasing power of investments, reducing the real returns of the investors. The last that I want to add in that some of them concerns, but some are the common interest between both the jurisdictions. The Brazil and India have very common sectors that is been considered for investment. One of them is the pharmaceutical products. In that, the huge investment and transactions have been done, and initially and in futuristic approach that is also in processes. Other things are like chemicals and petrochemicals, machinery equipment, software and technology, plus energy sectors also. These are being considered for common benefits and common sectors for investment for trade purpose. Benefits from India to Brazil that has been specifically we had carved out from the pharmaceutical products and organic chemicals like the bio things and pharma sectors specifically. And additional thing in terms of Brazil's energy and mining, agriculture, engineering sectors contributing to the country's development. That has been significant investment that is made towards energy and mining because both of the countries have innovative ideas and minds. They are using these options for the growing their economy and the development of their sources and all. Plus, some bilateral agreements also engage between the countries. Some of them are like BRICS, IBSA, G4, G20, Basic International Solar Alliance, WTO, UNESCO, and WIPO. Benefits from Brazil to India also we have been highlighted towards the technology factor plus the import from both the countries for the specific copper or for the mining sector itself. So from this onwards, I want to say, please.
I think we'll go to the question and answer session a little later, Amit. At the moment, I would request our Brazilian counterparts, Luiz and Carla, to, I think, just bring it up, bring up their presentation, so we can have a discussion on that.
Thank you, Shweta. Can everybody hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much, Shweta, for the opportunity and for the kind presentation. Thank you also to Amit and Ashutosh. That was very, very interesting. On two very quick personal comments, before I start, I had the privilege to be in India back in 2017. I visited Agra, Varanasi, Jodhpur, and I can say it's a lovely country, mesmerizing country, nice people, and I'm really planning to go back to India. It was a really rewarding experience. Also, a second quick comment. I'm really a fan of the Bollywood movies. I really love the musicals and all the cinematographic production from India. So I'm a big fan of India. Being said that, again, my name is Luiz. I am one of the corporate partners in TozziniFreire law firm in Brazil. And I will start then our presentation regarding doing business here in Brazil. I will share my screen. Please let me know if you are seeing the presentation.
Sure. Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay. So, just a second. Just a second. So yes, sorry for that. Everybody can see my presentation now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So speaking about a little bit Brazil, Brazil is the biggest country here in Latin America. Brazil has a population around 2,010 million inhabitants. Brazil is a democratic federative republic. We have strong institutions, and we are divided in 26 states. Brazil has a large consumers and also manpower, and we had just 2 years ago elections here in Brazil, so we have a new administration, and we are facing new business plans here, and the Brazilian government is trying to make new alliances and try to grow the economy here. So turning to the presentation itself, we have a slide here regarding foreign investments. We have basically 2 to 3 forms for doing foreign investments here in Brazil. The first one is external loans and financing transactions. The second one is direct equity investments. And the third one is investments through over-the-counter markets and stock exchange. I think that we are going to talk in more details later on these 3 different types of investments. But just in a few words, I think that the direct equity investment is the most common form here to do business. The investor can choose either a limited liability company or a corporation in order to do that. Limited liability companies usually are used for simpler business projects, and the corporation is used for more complex business projects. Before the transactions, if you are looking to over-the-counter markets and stock exchange investments, you have to constitute one or more representatives in the country and use the financial institution in order to operate here and also get the proper licenses. You have also to register with the Brazilian Securities and Exchange Commission and constitute one or more custodians authorized by the Brazilian Security Exchange Commission. As I anticipate a little bit, so one of the most common vehicles here in Brazil in order to do the direct investments is limited liability company form. This is the most common corporate type here because of its simplicity. It's regulated by the Brazilian Civil Code and the company's Articles of Association. May be incorporated by a sole quota holder, which is more cost expensive for a foreign investor. Has a lower level of formality in terms of transparency in comparison with the corporation. The capital is divided into quotas, which is the same thing as shares, and no minimum amount of capital is usually required, with exception to certain markets here in Brazil and practice. Dividend payments may be proportional or not proportional to the equity interest held by the quota holders. So this is sometimes is very attractive to investors, this flexibility. And however, Brazilian Limitadas, because of the simplicity and the lower level of transparency in comparison with corporations, cannot issue bonds, debentures, and other instruments of funding, and has no access to capital markets. Turning to corporations, the corporations is a more sophisticated vehicle to invest here in Brazil. The corporation is regulated by law, by the Brazilian corporation law. It requires a minimum of 2 shareholders. As I said, it has a higher level of formality in comparison with the Limitada. It has a more complex also internal governance, such as executive board, which is mandatory, and board of directors. The shareholders can create several kinds of shares, preferred shares, common shares, with different rights inherent to them. No minimum amount of capital required. However, it will depend on the activity to be developed in Brazil, but as a general principle, it has not. The dividend payment must be proportional to the equity interest held by the shareholders, and the Brazilian corporations can issue securities, bond, debentures, and other financing instruments, and it can have access to the capital market when duly registered and fulfilled the requirement by the Brazilian Securities Exchange Commission. Also, some features that are important. The Articles of Association needs to indicate the address where the activities of the company will be carried out. For companies that are not engaged in commercialization of goods, it's possible to adopt a virtual office or address. The corporate purpose must be informed with details. This is due to the registration with unions, the registration with the proper authorities, and the right classification with the Brazilian tax authorities. And regarding legal representation, all non-resident quota holders, shareholders of Brazilian entities, must grant a corporate power of attorney with powers to receive service of process and to represent the company or the foreign investor before Brazilian authorities, especially IRS authorities. And the attorney, in fact, resident in Brazil, will be the legal representative of the foreign entity in its capacity as quota holder and shareholder, as I said. Management. All Brazilian entities must appoint a manager resident in Brazil, or in case of a non-resident manager, which is kind of a new thing here, such manager shall grant a power of attorney to be a resident, that is a resident here in Brazil, with powers to receive service of process and to represent the foreign investor and the company before the Brazilian authorities. In practical terms, we are having some difficulties to indicate non-residents as legal representatives of the Brazilian companies. But we are optimistic that things will get better and will improve quickly. The quota holders, shareholders of every Brazilian company must hold an annual meeting within the 4 months subsequent to the end of each corporate year in order to review the management accounts and the company's financial statements, appoint officers, and deliberate over any other matters of the quota holder shareholders' interests. And finally, in terms of compliance and transparency, the Brazilian investor, the foreign investor in Brazil, must clearly indicate the ultimate beneficial owner of the foreign legal entities investing here. This is for transparency, for avoid money laundering here in the country. As a general rule, legal representatives of Brazilian companies are not personally liable for the obligations entered into by the companies themselves. However, there are some exceptions. If they acted with fault, negligence, or willful misconduct when performing their functions or exercising their powers, or if they acted in breach of law. And again, the corporate value here in Brazil is very aligned with almost every country in the world, so it offers a protection. However, there are these exceptions. Again, the legal representative may become personally liable, regardless of a faulty conduct for companies' liabilities arising from labor, environmental, and consumer issues. In these specific cases, managers can only protect themselves indirectly, as they must monitor the legal entity to ensure that this kind of debts either do not arise or are properly paid. In any case, officers can request the legal entity to acquire direction or officer's liability insurance, in which the coverage and exclusion of each policy must be carefully examined. Tax, well, I think tax here is very, very complex. And every authority here in Brazil, in the federal, state, or municipal levels, depending on the legislation, can apply taxes to businessmen and companies. However, the good news is that we are currently working on a tax reform, and the 3 main points of the tax reform is the simplification of consumption taxes, and so authorities are trying to decrease the number of these taxes for the time being, from 5 taxes to 3 or 2 taxes. Also, the tax reform is trying to give tax exemptions to basic grocery and other kind of foods here in Brazil, especially the ones consumed by the majority of the population. And the third aspect, important aspect, the tax reform is creating what we call selective taxes, excise taxes, which intends to burden some products that are considered harmful for the common citizen here in Brazil, just like tobacco and other products in this line. Labor. So here in Brazil, again, we have some flexibility when it comes to hiring the employees. So we have a very formal form, especially when there are very strict rules of working for the company. The basic logic here is that the stricter that the work regime is, the more legal protection you have. The more sophisticated and the more freedom you have as an employee, more liberty, more freedom the company, the employer, and the employee will have in order to negotiate, to freely negotiate the terms and conditions of the rendering of the work. So, in a nutshell, this is the main points here in terms of labor, and this is the end of our presentation. Again, thank you again, and I think that I don't know if you are still seeing my screen or I managed to close it. So I think we can now turn to our discussion here.
Sure. Thank you so much. I think it is very informative. And what I did notice is that largely the framework, as you have presented, is very similar to what we have in India as well. We also have the concept of private limited company, public limited company, one-person company. So it in terms of structuring is very similar. But there is a question, and that question probably is, for Ashutosh and also Carla, if you'd want to respond to this, is from your past and present transactions, would you be able to highlight some of the critical legal requirements and top challenges that foreign companies have faced when they have entered into, say, Indian market, from the bureaucracy to infrastructure, and what has been your strategy in mitigating such challenges? Question to you first, Ashutosh, and probably to you as well, Carla. So once Ashutosh finishes, you could also respond to similar question, same question actually.
In my opinion, the major difficulty which any foreign company faces in India is like they come with a notion of their own system. And the moment you come with a notion of their own system, you are actually not prepared for a cultural shock or regulatory shock, which may be part of the entire India transaction. So from my experience, I think that's a bit of fine tuning which is needed for any investor coming to India, is that you cannot have the idea of doing, say, X country work in India from a X country way of. So that's a bit of. These are all small mental fine tuning which can be addressed any which way, either prior to planning the entire investment or even during the course. But that's a bit of setback which I think during my tenure as corporate general counsel also, I have seen so many investment coming and they start putting all the documentation based on their experience without going into the nuances of Indian context. So that is very important, because even if we are one country and the kind of industry and the different state approach, you have to be very careful in planning your thing. And that's why if I'm suggesting anybody to come to India, the planning phase needs to be properly chalked out. Where you are going, what kind of industry you are coming. Say, for example, if you are coming with a software back office setup, Karnataka is one of the place to be. But if you are coming for a mining investment, you tend to choose the place where the entire mining is happening. So to keep your cost, your exposure, your expenses to the minimum. So these kind of few fine tuning which is needed. Rest all, yes, we have a history of a regulatory regime which creates a kind of ghost of a difficult regime. But slowly we are moving to the digitalization, which is really helpful, with like no face attached to the process. And that things are really improving. Yeah, Carla, go ahead, please.
Yes, yes, and I think our answer is also very similar because here in Brazil, I mean, we improved a lot if we compare to some years ago. And one of the first questions we receive from clients when they're coming to Brazil is, okay, I want to know the timeline. How many days does it take for us to incorporate a new company in Brazil? And the answer is always, it depends. I mean, it depends on your business, on the place you are incorporating your company. So when we have a wholly owned subsidiary being incorporated in Brazil and the service to be provided, for instance, the technology service, an application, the regulation is different and many times it's more simpler because you don't need the state registration that you need when you are going to commercialize goods or manufacture goods. So these are very different things. When you are going to start an activity, a services activity, you can use a virtual address, for instance. So we have less regulation, but still, one thing that is very important is for the company and the client to be prepared to cooperate with us and to rely on our advice, because we will need a lot of documents from them. As Luiz explained, we do have some regulation regarding transparency, so we need a lot of foreign documents and they will need to be apostille, translated, and we do need to receive all of that in order to proceed with the incorporation of the company. Something that may take time in Brazil as well, and it may sound simple, but it's not, is to open a bank account, for instance. To open a bank account, and the banks, they require a lot of documents and information, and sometimes the client says, is it true? I mean, is it take such a long time to open a bank account? Yes, in Brazil it does, because the banks, they need to comply with all these regulatory requirements. So the clients, they need to be prepared to provide a lot of documents and information. And we also need to know very well, because depending on the business, we may have some specific regulation, and Brazil is a very regulated country. So depending on the activity, the company may need specific licenses. Those licenses may take time to be obtained. So as Ashutosh mentioned, the preparation phase, the planning phase is very important, because we need to map everything that will be necessary in order to align expectations with the client as well.
So, thank you. I think, yeah, that is true. I think that is something that both of you as speakers have caught as a common concern. And I think planning is the key, where you are able to invest. If you're able to spend 70% of your time on planning, I think, you will have to spend 30% of your time on the rest of the issues. So I totally get that. However, I would want to understand, and probably, Amit, you could respond to this question, is how important is it to have, local partners or joint ventures in successfully navigating our markets? And would you have some success stories around that? And this is a question which I think I would request Luiz, you also to respond after Amit has spoken on this.
In regards with the opportunities and in the scenario, the sector that has been considering. The recent cases are in that way, a lot of investments that has been planned towards the Brazil, it's considering the pharma sector and energy sector. And currently, a lot of energy plants and you can say all the proposed energy future like solar or hydrogen, all these government initiative also part of that. Lot of tenders that has been floated, so that kind of like incentives and subsidies has been provided for the government to take the initiative to have a social based corporations and have a good kind of benefits towards the environment also and towards the corporation to get the better returns for the futuristic approach. However, in terms of the legal regulation has been not defined, or some you can say rules and laws is not clarified, so it will be helpful for them to work in process of the government itself because they will outline the guidelines and create the things in that way. So that is the benefit towards it. Luis, you can add also.
Yes. So I think that we should speak here about having the right partner in two ways. First, perhaps thinking about a foreign investor, thinking about having already a Brazilian partner here in the business itself. So obviously, it's something that will be efficient in terms of knowing the market, in terms of adapting to the market. So in this regard, joint ventures and partnerships with local players are very important. And I think that in these terms, the foreign investor would hit the ground running because of the knowledgeable partner that he will be here, that we will have here in Brazil. In the other sense, like Hammurabi and Tozzini, to have the right business partner, the right advisor, the right law firm will also speed up things, will also entail the foreign investor to avoid unnecessary layers of bureaucracy, of red tape. So this is very important. One example that I can give of in the first case that I mentioned of a foreign investor having a local partner here in Brazil in order to develop some business is Cosan Shell. Shell is a British famous company. Cosan is also a very reputable company here in Brazil, and they made together Raizen, which is one of the most important fuel and agribusiness industries here in Brazil. So I think that's very helpful and important in terms of strategy.
Sure. Anything that, Ashutosh and Carla, any of you would want to add on to this before we move into the next question? And I think we are also running short of time, so we'll have to be quick in our responses.
So just to add, I'm sorry, Carla, you want to go ahead, please.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Just to add that local not always gives you an advantage of local knowledge. And for any investment coming in, be it Brazil, be it India, local partner gives you that edge of local knowledge, how to navigate in the different, and that's something which actually saves lots of effort, time, and your resources. So in my opinion, that's the biggest advantage of having a local partner or joint venture, you can say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Though there are also instances where, we have seen that, local partners have handheld through those local challenges, which they have a better understanding. So I totally get it from where you're coming. Now, the last question that I have, because I had a lot of questions, but I would want to now quickly summarize is, how do you see the digital transformation and technological advancement impacting the market entry strategies, both in India and Brazil? And I leave it to the speakers to take it up, whoever would want to respond on this question.
So if I can go first, in my opinion, it's really helpful. And I'm talking only from an Indian context, because the moment we take the faces out of our entire process, the individual biases decreases. And that's why the digital uh, all the regulatory aspect of digital thing, and even in the payment scenario, when you have even the local vendors using UPI in India, that actually gives you an edge of doing business in a most, you can say, better way what it was. So yeah, it's a work in progress, but it's a right direction movement which is happening in India. And I'm really very hopeful of getting up in the ladder of doing ease of doing business in India on the horse of digital revolution which is happening in India. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, yes, and I think this digital transformation not only for the public services in Brazil. So, for instance, when you are going to incorporate a new company, you can already do it in a digital way. Brazil nowadays, when we have transactions and we sign agreements, everything is electronically, but also Brazil, I think, and this is also something very similar to India, Brazilians are very connected and love using technology, and that creates, I mean, a huge market for technology companies. So I think we are, Brazil is amongst the top countries in terms of using social media like WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, and things like that. Brazilians like to be on the internet, so this creates huge opportunities not only for companies investing and developing their business in Brazil, but also what we see is that Brazil is also evolving in terms of the regulatory aspect. So we do have a specific data protection law now. We are also in the process of discussing a bill of law for artificial intelligence. So, and in connection, for instance, with financial service, Brazil is one of the top innovative countries. Our central bank is also ahead of its time, I mean, regarding payment methods. So, yeah, that creates huge opportunities.
So
Yeah,
I
in
think,
terms of
yeah, go ahead, Amit. Sorry.
in terms of the technology transformation, that is like digitalize the way that will be considered in terms of the IP protections, that will be helpful for both the countries, because numerous global level IPs has been shared between the countries for working new kinds of technologies and innovative modes of new kinds of startup people. So in that way, usually if they consider the legal understanding of getting to understand how the patent, what are the idea they are focusing on needs to be registered. So it will helpful them there's control over their business, and that is basically for the bread butter for them. But still, it's need to be controlled by them and owned by them instead of sharing with the public domain. It have a good thing in terms of also that leveraging their digitalized thing in terms of the platform they will provide for any kind of idea or services they are getting into. So that kind of thing will also be controlled by the digital transformation. Like it can concern regulatory aspect, include the taxation needs to be digitalized. Other way, the services provided to the normal public that is being provided by the company also needs to be digitalized. So both way it's better for the economic plus the investment side. So both the countries have a good initiative in terms of working towards the digital transformation, but it will take time and it's down the line, but still it, when futuristic thing, it will be come for a longer answers.
Any last word from you, Luiz, before we close the session? Because I think there are too many questions we can go on. I think we will have to do a part 2 and a part 3 to be able to cover all the questions. But any last minute comments from your end?
No, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity. It was a pleasure teaming up with Hammurabi law firm. It was a pleasure to get to know Amit, yourself, Shweta, and Ashutosh. And well, look forward to seeing you here in Brazil.
Yes, likewise. So whenever you are in India, we are going to have, a one-to-one physical session soon. So no, thank you so much. Thank you, Ashutosh, Amit, Carla, Luiz, all four of you for for your insightful discussions and presentation. I think that was helpful to understand and get a glimpse of what actually lies between India and Brazil in terms of the regulatory framework, and how do we go about it in terms of the steps that are required to be taken for doing business in India and Brazil, and also understand the complexities around the regulatory frameworks, the entry strategies, the trade dynamics, and cultural considerations. I think we have to actually do a part 2 and a part 3 to be able to cover a lot more that we have in our thought process, in our mind, in our understanding. But for today, because we had a 1 hour session, it is now already 1 hour. Thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and your engaging perspectives that made today's webinar a success. Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you
day.
very much.
Thank
you.
you.
Everyone, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Nossa, deixa eu só te falar uma coisa, Carla. A gente desligou mesmo.
Now it is over, I guess. Yeah, we have closed the YouTube live. Thank you so much. I just wanted to thank you before we